Hi, I'm Tim Horn, and I'm here today to tell a wonderful story about a citizen who came here as an immigrant from Vietnam. His name is Hop Nguyen, and he came as South Vietnam was falling. Hop was there with his family and was a 16-year-old young man. They were trying to get out because they sympathized with the South Vietnamese army. His dad was in the South Vietnamese army, and they were supporters of freedom and the American presence there. Obviously not a great place to be when the war was ending, not favorably for America and the South Vietnamese army. In fact, it was a dangerous place to be, highly dangerous for his entire family. So they were desperately looking for a way out, and unfortunately there were only 2 rides they were approved for to get out. And so two of his brothers left on that ride and got out, but it left the husband and the wife and I think 4 other children, right?
Yes.
To find their own way out of South Vietnam as the war ended in Vietnam. And those of you who remember it or have seen it, there's a very great picture of the evacuation from the embassy, the United States embassy in I guess it was in, where was it? What city was it?
Saigon.
Of course it was in Saigon. It was the fall of Saigon. How quickly we all can forget. I'm sure I wasn't there, but the American soldiers who were there and Hop remember it like it was yesterday. So it was a big story. This is what was going on. You know those people were evacuating from the embassy, and as many people as they could get out and evacuate, they were leaving. And it left people like Hop and his family, unfortunately, to fend mostly for themselves. So Hop's story went on, and what happened for him was that he and a couple of hundred other people were able to get on what had been a transport barge, an ammo transport barge, and they were towed out in the ocean, and much to their surprise, they were set adrift in the ocean without warning, and the ship that pulled them out just left. So they had no idea what was going to happen to them. They're set adrift, hundreds of people with little water, little food, and really little hope. So at some time, and we're going to pick up the story there, with this drifting crew of people trying to escape what would become certain death in South Vietnam. They're on this boat, their only hope, and it was little. And there's a ship on the horizon, it starts to come. And what were you on the boat thinking at that time on the barge?
Well, at the time, there was one person on the barge who actually had a pair of binoculars, and the ship was in the horizon, and we tried to determine what type of ship it was.
Yeah, so you didn't know if it was an American ship or
no,
what
it wasn't. It could
have been a pirate.
It could be a pirate ship, and in those waters, that's very common to see pirate ships.
Wow.
So we were in a mixed emotion. It's half hoping that it was someone who would come to rescue us, but half fear because we don't know.
So we
didn't know.
You literally have Vietnamese, the North Vietnamese, the winners in Vietnam, looking to hurt you if you went back. You got sharks under the water. You got pirates on the surface, and you got little hope, little food, little water. And apparently your dad spoke some English pretty well, I guess, but most people didn't speak English.
That's correct.
And you're trying to save your lives, and I could just imagine as a parent what that would be like, trying to save the lives of your family adrift in the ocean. Unbelievable. All right, so the boat's coming, and then what happens?
That was in the afternoon when we saw the boat. We finally saw the red, white, and blue, and that was, we were completely, totally elated.
I'll bet.
They had pulled the barge to the side of the ship and started the process of moving us over to the ship. One thing that I remember it was taking such a long time. It was probably past midnight before everyone was,
So it took
was on
hours.
board. Yeah, it took hours because like guys mentioned before, it was a logistic nightmare
It would be.
for the ship, because they were supposed to be picking up very few refugees, but they had they expected one barge, and I think they probably picked up 3 barges.
Okay, so what they're doing, this Navy ship, what's the name of the ship?
The SS Miller.
SS Miller was out picking up these barges of refugees that had been set adrift. Now, when they were set adrift, Hop told me that they had no idea there were other barges at the time. They could see no one. They thought they may be the only barge in that sector, so they're really out there alone. They see the red, white, and blue flag flying above this ship that's coming towards them. It's not a pirate. It's not the South Vietnamese. It's not somebody coming to take them back. It's somebody coming to save them. And you think of that, and you think of all the American boys that lost their life there, their lives there, and everything they did, and even the sailors in this ship coming to help. And you think of that flag, and I think in the last couple of days in our recent times here, where I've seen people burning the American flag, trashing it, taking it out of people's hands. And imagine, if you're young, the reverence, the hope that was attached to that flag. It was built into it for people like Hop. And you can imagine that imprint put right in his brain, and you'll find out soon, he exhibits that hope today. He reveres that flag, as most of us, I think, should. But, so they get him over, and did they actually tie the ship to the barge? They tied the barge to the ship?
Yes.
Bound them together so they could do a nighttime operation. And if you've ever been on boats, you know they don't rise and fall and sink, so it can be kind of a rough operation to get them up. So did anybody get hurt in that process?
Yes. In the middle of the evacuation, one lady, they actually installed wooden planks between the 2 vessels for people to walk, and this one lady lost her footing, and of course she was just
She fell
battered.
between the boats?
Yeah, she was just battered between the two hulls.
She was lucky to live.
And actually, no, she did not make
And
it.
she didn't make it. Yeah, that's tough.
It was they rescued her, but the reason that I know that she didn't make it is because about half an hour later, they were calling for a priest or a pastor,
Yeah.
and that's when I knew that she had passed away.
Yeah, so this is they're coming from dire straits, but it isn't over yet. They got to, they got to transfer a ship. That is so dangerous. It's very difficult for everybody, and it doesn't surprise me that someone lost their life. So, gosh, imagine that. Their families, they have all this hope and glee, and then they lose one of their family. That's tough. So now you're on the ship safely. Did they just set the barge adrift again?
I believe so, yes.
And then
it
just-
was past midnight, so we weren't privy of what they were doing with the barge.
But they didn't tow it, so they probably
No,
just let it go.
they
It'd be
didn't.
tough to tow and really slow them down and take fuel. So now they're all in this boat, but they had picked up some other people, so the boat is really cramped. Again, if you're into boating, you can only take so many people, and there's only so much food and so much water. You got time to travel, you got fuel to use, and you can't run out of fuel. It's not like you can stop at a station and get it. So there's lots going on for the captain and the crew, and there was some bad feelings about some of the crew members had, but I don't think that's probably not that unnatural out there. But I'm sorry you had to suffer any of that. But there was good times ahead, and
Yes.
I think you probably kept your mind on that.
Yes.
And the fact that you're being saved, and maybe somebody's not treating you as well as they might have. So now you're on the boat. What was it like on the boat? You had approximately 3,000 people, I think you said, that were
Yes.
refugees
Mhm.
on the boat, as well as the crew.
Yes. many people opted to go down to the hull, to below deck, and for our family, we thought that it was not a very wise move because of the heat and the humidity, and actually we stayed on the helipad. Our family opted to stay on the helipad, and of course we were subjected to wind and rain and sun.
Absolutely.
But it was a better choice because we found out later that those who opted for going below deck suffered a lot of,
Disease?
the heat. They suffered heat, and
for sure.
there was actually one person who passed away
Perished from that.
because of that.
Yeah. So
So-
here's another person they lose. Goes down below deck. It's hot. It's not built with air conditioning and stuff and all the spaces, so it would be tough duty. So they were where essentially they'd be transporting goods or.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. What? So did you have calm seas in this journey?
Fortunately, yes. But I did mention that we had some rainstorms that we just had to hunker down, and
Might have felt good.
fortunately it was
Someways.
not cold,
Yeah.
and so we could handle the rain, being wet.
Sure.
but,
Yeah. Okay, you're out of South Vietnam. You're on an American boat and you're headed to Subic Bay. So that's where they were taken. It's off to the Philippines. There's a large Navy installation there still, Subic Bay, and that's where they were off to. So you in this journey, most of the people got through it okay, and I'm sure you must have been happy to have your feet on the Philippine land.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Oh yes.
And how long were you in the Philippines before you resettled in the United States?
We were only in the Philippines for several hours, long enough for the facility to feed us our first decent meal in days, but that was it.
Yeah, so you got food, you got their feet on some land, and then it was back on another boat, I suppose.
Actually, we were loaded up on a C-130,
Even better, they're flying.
and we headed for the island of Guam.
So you went to Guam on I guess it would be an Air Force cargo plane, right?
Yes.
So you go to Guam, another territory of the United States. So you're there, and how long were you in Guam? Did you?
I was in Guam. We were in Guam for only 1 week.
So you turned 17 during this transit part, I know, right?
I actually turned 17 at sea.
Okay, so you were still at sea when you turned 17. Happy
Yes.
birthday, I
Thank
guess. Well, good for you. That'd be a good
Yeah.
birthday. So, so now you fly in, and they flew you into where?
You mean from
From
Guam.
Guam. You left Guam. You were there for a week, whatever.
We left Guam, and they booked us on a commercial flight
Okay, so commercial
to
like that.
Oahu, and then from there we changed planes and went directly to Camp Pendleton.
What?
in
They didn't let
California.
you go to the beach or anything in Hawaii?
No, they did not.
I've never been to Hawaii. I've always wanted to go there. At least you flew into it, but
Yes.
I've got to get there sometime. So now you leave Hawaii, and it must have felt so good being in a place that you could see where there's no war, there's security,
And there's hope.
then there's hope. Yes, the hope it must have just been boiling up inside you. And so now you can see it, you feel it, and now you go on, and they take you, they fly you in from Hawaii on into where?
Camp Pendleton.
Camp Pendleton, that's right, you told me that. And how long were you at Camp Pendleton before they resettled you?
We were in Camp Pendleton for a good part of a month.
And did they treat you well? Was it good? I mean,
Actually, excellent.
Excellent.
The Marines there were just top notch. And
They're well-trained.
Yes, they're well trained and very kind, very service oriented. I can't think of anything that they would have done that would be termed bad. I mean, they were very, very professional, very kind.
Were there any classes in English or anything? Were they trying to help you get acclimated to the United States there?
Actually, at that time, no. Camp Pendleton, by the time that we were there, was pretty much overrun with refugees also.
Oh, okay. Lots were there.
So they were doing their best to feed us, and we also have the people in the community coming in to to help us with clothing and with our basic necessities.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Okay. So you're getting some clean clothes and the vitals like razors probably and stuff like that. Yeah. Personal care items. And how many refugees? So Camp Pendleton was like a refugee camp then at this time. Yes. So how many people would you say were there that were refugees?
Oh, I can't tell you. I can't tell you.
Thousands?
It was there would have been thousands, because you can walk from one end of the camp to the next, and you can't even walk.
Got it.
Across. So it's huge.
So when you were at Camp Pendleton, you were going to be mustered out to some other place. How did you get to choose, or how did that work? Did they ask if you had relatives in any of these places or anything like that?
I don't think they did.
Your dad took care of that probably.
Actually, we were. There was a program to sponsor families out into the community, but like typical agencies, they were focused on smaller families. Mom and dad with a couple of kids. It would be easier for let's say a family out, in the community to take care of a small group like that. But with us, a family at that time, it's a family of 6. It was very difficult to get anyone who would consent to taking us on.
That's a lot, yeah, yes. 6. So, so you did not get a sponsor, but you then went to Northern California.
Yeah. We finally did get a sponsor from a pastor from a church.
Excellent.
We were under the impression that this pastor was going to take us on. This pastor, let me establish the background. We heard the rumor, and I can't confirm this, that for each person who got sponsored out, the government would give the caretakers $500 per head to help these refugees get a good start, establish.
Help pay their expenses.
And it was a reasonable assumption. This pastor, however, made it his business to do this kind of things.
So he was in the business of resettling refugees.
Yes. And so when the day came that he would come, that he came to pick us up, he loaded us up in his station wagon and drove us outside Camp Pendleton. And no sooner did he pass the gate, he stopped his station wagon. And let me kind of back up a little bit.
Well, we don't need all the detail.
Yeah,
but
before this moment, he was very, very pleasant. He was a very pleasant person.
So he gets outside the gate. Now he's not
just
so
outside the gate. His demeanor changed completely, and he told us there was another station wagon waiting outside the gate, and he told us to get into that one and get loaded. And we were a little bit bewildered because we didn't know what it was.
You don't know
and-
customs here?
Yep.
Nothing?
So
Okay.
once we got loaded on the second station wagon, the pastor left, and we have never seen him since.
I think I'd be looking that guy up. Maybe we should make it part of this interview. That would be
No.
good. All right, so now you're with somebody you don't know, but you know it wasn't what was supposed to be, and all your high hopes and energy is like, wait a minute, what's going on? Okay, so you're with someone that's you're feeling strange and uncomfortable now, and then where does that person take you?
This person took us to an almond grove in the little city of Delhi, and we were put into a room in the farmhouse, and what we were told was we would be working at the farm at the almond grove for $200 a month, the entire family. But then they will be charging us for food and clothing and utilities. So by the time that they finished calculating, I believe we came out with $20 a month for the
All
entire
right,
family.
so there you have it. So here's somebody unscrupulous gets in on a program where the government's trying to resettle refugees, obviously a dishonest person, and it happens. And now here's this family that's just made their way from a war-torn country where their life is totally in jeopardy, in fact, guaranteed to end if they didn't get out. They get out, they get saved, adrift at sea. This is a true story. Then they get to America, and some unscrupulous person is now taking them to work. A whole 6 people would work full-time for net $20 a month. Now think about that. Even though it's been a long time, believe me, $20 a month wasn't enough back then to make any headway in life. And so your dad must have been beside himself and trying to figure out what to do.
We did not have any help, and we weren't aware of any type of help that was available to us. And so for, I would say, about a month, we were at the farm working. And not just that, these farmers, of course, in farm country, call themselves Christian. So on Sunday, we would be dressed. We would be told to get dressed and go to church. And it would be church in the morning, church in the evening. But before you think it's a good thing, it is not. What they had been doing was they had been taking us to different churches all throughout all the other cities, all the way up to Modesto, all the way down to Merced. And what they did was to speak to the pastor ahead of time and told him about our tearjerker story and asked for donation.
Oh my gosh. So he's trying to collect donations on your suffering,
Yes,
to help you out, but I'm sure he was keeping the money.
that's correct.
So here's another guy just lying to people and trying to profit off of your misery.
Yes.
And your dad, of course, and you're 17, you don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody try to break the news that in reality he's keeping the money and he's keeping us prisoners?
Well, we were very well kept away from others. We were not allowed to speak with anyone.
I'm sure you weren't.
They kept us well in control.
How long did this go on?
This went on for, I would say, about a month and a half.
Okay.
Fortunately, as usual, criminals are not very bright. This farmer had taken us too many times to the same church for donation, and that raised some suspicions from certain members of the congregation, and they wanted to come out and see us and visit us, and of course the farmer would refuse. And so,
what were your conditions like where you were living on the farm? Adequate?
Compared to what we were used to in Vietnam, yes, it was adequate. It was adequate, but
compared to
it
American
was,
standards, it probably didn't
yeah,
meet up too well.
and we knew better, because this is we were kept isolated on the farm. We weren't allowed visitors. We weren't allowed to speak to even the neighbors.
Right. You can see
so
why,
there is something wrong there. Fortunately, there was one pastor who caught on to this, and he insisted on coming out to visit us. And of course, he was denied, but he was persistent enough that he said that if he couldn't visit us, then he would bring social services out. So
good for him.
Yeah, and
now
so
that's a good man.
Yeah, so the farmer relented and let him come out and visit us, and before they knew it, the pastor had packed us up and took us out of that situation.
Good.
Yeah.
So did he take you under his hopeful wing, or what?
He actually put us in his home. He has, at the time he had 3 children, and he took us all in.
Oh, what a wonderful thing. Now, so time goes by, you're there with him for some time, and then you are able to move out on your own and make your own way.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get additional assistance from the United States government in any way?
I believe our family were given some welfare assistance for, I believe, 6 months to a year. I can't remember.
So, I always wondered about that, and other people from that time remember there was an issue about when we left Vietnam, when America left Vietnam, that we were leaving people like the Nguyen family behind to fend for themselves and what would happen to them. I'm pleased to hear this family, at least, made it over and then got some assistance to reestablish their life, and despite some errant people along the way, so they could reestablish. And I would say that your life, I know how old you are and everything now, so I would say your life's gone pretty well.
Yes.
Yeah. So Hop went on to college. He graduated from high school, went on to college, all in Northern California. How many degrees do you have, Hop?
Well, I would say strictly 2 degrees, but the 1 degree is a double major.
All right, so he's got 2 degrees and a double major. Now remember, this was a kid on a boat facing death. He's on a barge. He makes it to America and establishes a life for I suppose that are you married? I don't know.
Yes, I am.
A married life, sets up his own household. He's got multiple degrees, math and IT, right?
Yes.
And then he sets up his own life and becomes an American like all of us. And it's a good story. It's a great story, really. And it's the kind of story that America is replete with. But sometimes we forget that story's been made in wars that you didn't expect, and by people that you don't expect. You look at them, but you don't really know their story behind it. But this is a true American success story. Thank you for being with me today. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you very much.
It's a wonderful story, and even in these times, I got to shake your hand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.